Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about one of the most exciting, ambitious mods in the game right now, Skyblivion. Now, we've done a lot of Skyblivion coverage here on the channel. It's few and far between when the uploads arrive, but when they do, we have much to talk about, and that's the exact same case here today as we're getting into a release window as well as brand new information for this mod. And I am still incredibly excited because now at least we have an idea of when we could possibly expect it. So we're going to get into that, and as always with our Skyblivion content, I will have the volunteer link in the description down below. If you wish to participate in Skyblivion, help out how you can, submit your application, you can do so through that link. They are constantly looking for help. With that, let's dive in. So like I said, we got a brand new trailer. Probably good chance if you watch my channel, you already saw this one. There's already 1.2 million views on this trailer. It's funny because Kyle, who is the project manager for Skyblivion, was nervous that people had forgot about this game. And before I get even into my thoughts on the trailer, the release window, I just want to send some love to him. He's an awesome dude, but also, man, just know no one's forgetting about this mod. Nobody. You say the word when it's coming out, people will be there. I would just say as a friend, try to get it out before Elder Scrolls 6, maximize the player count. But still, this is a remake of a classic we all love dearly. The player base will be there. The people will care. Fear not, my friend. I understand how you feel, but we got your back. With that, let's talk about what's within this trailer. So the release window, 2025. There was a mixed feeling within me. I was really excited to see a year and know that, wow, it's finally going to arrive, and they have an idea of when based off the current resources they have or may end up having. That is stellar. But at the same time, I'm like, man, that's far away. We're at the start of 2023, and I don't know if this will be right at the cracking beginning of 2025. Who knows? But what they did say is that right now, this is a date they feel comfortable with hitting, and that they could even go ahead of that date if they continue to get more volunteers, if they continue to get more help. Of course, you got to smash those milestones. Of course, you have to polish beyond just adding the features to the game. There is a lot of work to be done. We all know Oblivion is a gigantic video game, and there's a reason why for a lot of its dungeon designs, which we'll be talking about in today's video, it was all copy and pasted similar cells made by one person. So the quantity is very high, especially for its time and even today's standards. And so to redo all of that with a new level of quality, it is going to take some time. I understand why. It's one of those moments where you're arguing with yourself because you go, oh man, it's so far away, but it's a free mod. And it looks incredible. I mean, they are remaking so many things from the ground up. So as for the release window, I'm fine with it, right? Like, I don't want to sit here and get selfish as much as I want it to be sooner. You got to understand this isn't your traditional AAA developer or your indie developer with a publisher behind them. This is a team of modders doing this for free. So they could take until 2027 if they really felt like it. They could. So 2025, I'm perfectly fine with. Outside of that, we got a couple of new shots in the trailer I wanted to call some attention to. So one thing that the Skyblivion team said was that they were going to do the Plains of Oblivion last. And in one of the shots actually during the Skyblivion trailer, the latest one to come out, is that we did see the Plains of Oblivion in a brand new cutscene style as well, where the swords were clashing together. This might have just been a cinematic flair, presentation flair to make the trailer really pop, because the trailers that they do for Skyblivion are legit. Like, I know we always talk about the mod, it's making a dream come true, but the trailers themselves are really good. Like the transitions to the characters sitting on top of the rooftop with their leg up. It's so epic, but it's also fitting because like that shot there of someone sitting on the rooftop, like Oblivion's low-key a cozy game, especially some of its environments, just very cozy game. So I think it fits well, but the editing style is fantastic. Anyway, we do see this new sword clashing animation. I wouldn't look too heavily into it, but beyond that, we are seeing are the Plains of Oblivion, which I do think adds credibility to where they may be at in the stage of development, which is trying to round things out here and push to that 2025 release window. I also noticed what I believe is a new enemy type. So, for example, in Skyrim, we have Mordecai, we'll take for example, and Mordecai is one of the many dragon priests that you'll fight in the game, and they pop out of a crypt effectively, and they float in the air and stick their arms out. And while we don't see a dragon priest obviously here in Oblivion, we do see some type of enemy pop out of a tomb, stick their arms out, very similarly to a dragon priest. So something to keep your eye on here as they're adding even more enemy types to the game. We already knew they were going pretty gung-ho at this. For example, a lot of people don't know, but there were goblin tribes in the original Oblivion, but given it's a 2006 game, you didn't get much visual diversity, but now you actually do in Skyblivion, so you can differentiate which goblin tribe is which and how they're fighting over each other, which is actually an awesome level of detail. So it doesn't surprise me here that we're getting another added bonus here in the enemy design. And you'll see as I comb through some of the new details that this is a project where the team is allowed to claim, if you will, certain parts of the project if they so desire. One thing that I know Kyle talked about in an old stream that we'll be revisiting for this video is that there was a person who was building the Alien Rune assets, and then they actually claimed a couple of unique weapon and armor sets. And so they put their own spin on them because they're even remaking those weapon and armor. Because as we know in Oblivion, a lot of them would just have different names, different effects, but the same model and asset, which you understand why. But now they're taking the opportunity to change all of that, which is really exciting. Now, I spoke about that stream, and I covered the trailer that dropped around the time of said stream. This is about 8 to 9 months ago. But I never covered the live stream that happened afterwards, which featured about 3 hours of gameplay for Skyblivion. And this isn't the first time that Kyle has hosted a stream for Skyblivion and shown off a lot of the project. But this one I found especially relevant to me, at least because I didn't really cover much of it, but also just giving context to some of the new things we saw and seeing how far they've come in an almost year window to kind of gauge where they can be at within the next year and then by 2025, but also to give you new information that maybe you haven't heard before. So what am I talking about? Well, for example, something like the Bow of Infernal Frost. This is something we did see in one of the more recent Skyblivion updates, but we actually got to see it in action inside this stream. And you notice that there's no quiver for this bow. It's a magical bow that actually shoots ice arrows, and there's a fiery explosion on impact. This is one of the things they've been showing off big time, and it looks awesome. But just seeing it in action, the way it works, the, again, lacking of a quiver, it functions differently to other weapons in the game, so it does make it truly unique. Something that, you know, if I were to call Bethesda's flaws out on one of my favorite aspects of the games, by the way, it would be that sometimes the effects are the differentiating factors for these weapons and not necessarily how they play. So this was a pretty good twist on one of them where I love the idea of a magical bow anyway, but seeing it in action was nice for me. Beyond that, what they also start talking a bit about is Skyrim and Oblivion placeholders. So remember what I said about how when you're doing a remake of any Bethesda project within the creation kit, let's say you're making Fallout 3 again through the Fallout 4 engine, which we know is a mod that's in development. What you can't do is say, okay, we'll take my water bottle here. You can't say this water bottle here is in Fallout 4. Let's just bring it back and place it in Fallout 3. Bethesda doesn't allow that. What you'd have to do is take this water bottle, maybe put it in the spot you want to have it in Fallout 3 and be like, okay, this is a placeholder for now, and then remake said water bottle. Then from there, you are clear legally. That is how it functions, which is a little crazy, but that's the length that Bethesda wants these modders to go to. And the reason all of that is relevant is because they are saying here with Skyblivion that there are less and less placeholders showing up. I thought this was important context because, again, we're talking 9 months ago, there were less and less placeholders from both these games being used. And now here we are getting a release window. So you can only imagine that number has shrunken down. They're slowly crawling to that polished state, which is one of the longest parts of the development process, making sure everything works without breaking. I actually never had a chance to see this. I saw it in a buddy of mine's video, ESO. He showed off some of the redone facial animations for Skyblivion and how different they are, because of course we know in Oblivion, when you start a conversation, you get that classic awkward zoom. And while I do have some love for that, it is very old school, so to say. And one thing that Skyrim was going for was not freezing the world around you when conversations started. You could start a bit of conversation and the world around you would exist and continue to move. So that is something that is going to happen in Oblivion, but also some of the facial animations have been improved. I thought this was a really cool one to see. So shout out to ESO for this one. I talked about earlier in the video how they are remaking some of the dungeons in the game. This is also important because, again, I got a lot of love for Oblivion. It was my first BGS game. It was the first love for me. Absolutely adored it. Technically Morrowind was, but I never beat Morrowind, so Oblivion was really that first love, like binge, couldn't put it down, just a special experience in video games for me. When it comes to the dungeons in the game, like I said, they were all made by one person. Staggering, especially for its time. Bethesda was punching way above their weight when it came to their games at the time. Obviously, we know there's been a bit of a regression there as game developments become more expensive and complex, but when it comes to the dungeon design, now you have multiple people who can put their touches on the dungeons. Now you have multiple minds being dedicated to said dungeons. And again, what I said earlier about different people claiming different parts of the game, there is sort of a indie development style of people wearing multiple hats, which I think is typically the best because there's no real level for anyone to be just sitting at. They can just scale up when they want or scale down when they want. But there are limitations. Like one thing Kyle said is the person who was working on the loading screen art isn't going to move into 3D assets because then you get a bit of scale creep, so to say. Like you're going a little too ambitious and then there's just too much for you to polish, and then that's where cut content comes into play. But they are redoing these dungeons, and that is exciting because I think Oblivion's dungeons haven't aged the best. But if you were to say, oh, I love Oblivion's dungeons, I'm gonna have to say it's probably some rose-tinted glasses doing the speaking there. I say that as someone who loves Oblivion, of course. But look, you had the same cells for either a cave-type dungeon or the alien ruins and so on and so forth. The sewers, of course. It was pretty cut and paste for its time, but the quantity at the time was so incredible it didn't really matter to a lot of people. The last little feature I wanted to talk about is spell creation. One of the things that people actually want to see come back in Elder Scrolls 6 because we didn't see it in Skyrim, unfortunately. I would agree. I think it was one of the cool, more fluid build options that you had within the gameplay elements where it was beyond your character leveling up and some of your preferred skills. It was like how you built out spells and what they could do. And of course, seeing what crazy spells people created online. I feel like that just sells itself, like just letting players create spells with social media and whatnot, being able to share online, look at this spell I made that just nukes enemies or does this kind of buff, etc., etc. I think personally it just kind of makes sense, but that's in the game now. It's feature complete. It has some UI elements that they were looking to build out a number of months ago, so I imagine that's only made progress since then. Of course, there's going to be some polish tests for that, but otherwise, that is all the information I have for you today on Skyblivion. Extremely, extremely excited for this one. Again, 2025 is when we're looking to see this one come out at the latest, it seems. And if you're interested in volunteering, I again have the link in the description down below. But hey, shout out to the Skyblivion team doing a fantastic job here. I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts in the comments down below on the new information and some of the old information that I was personally catching up on and wanted to share with all of you in case it was new for you. So let me know your thoughts. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.